On a Thursday morning in February, Dorothy Sinclair walked into the bank where she had been a customer for 40 years. She was not there to deposit anything. She was there because her daughter Patricia had flown in from Portland the night before, and because Patricia had asked carefully, the way you ask a question you already know the answer to, if she could see the account balance. Dorothy said yes, of course. There was nothing to hide. What Dorothy saw that morning would change everything she thought she knew about the one person she had never once thought to question. Dorothy Sinclair had lived on Millbrook Avenue in Columbus for 46 years. She was not a careless woman. She had a degree in mathematics. She taught arithmetic for 30 years. She knew, in the way careful people know things, exactly where her money was. When her husband Thomas died 4 years ago, Dorothy was 70 years old and in possession of a household that ran on Thomas's meticulous systems: monthly bill binders, color-coded tabs, 3 filing drawers of financial records in perfect chronological order. She had never had to manage the finances alone, not because she couldn't, but because Thomas wanted to. It was the thing he gave her. When he was gone, Gary stepped in. Gary was her son. He was 49. He lived 30 minutes away and had been in her kitchen more times than she could count over the past 4 years. He had replaced her furnace filter and fixed her gutters and sat with her on the anniversary of Thomas's death without being asked. And so, 18 months before this story opens, when Gary suggested that he be added as a co-signatory on her bank account in case of emergency, in case she was unwell, Dorothy thought about it for approximately 4 minutes. Then she signed the form. She did not ask for a copy. What Dorothy did not know, because Gary had told no one, was that his contracting business had been failing for 3 years, that he had leveraged his home once too many times, that he was not managing her finances as a son. He was managing them as a man who had just found a door that was already open. Over the next 11 months, Gary Sinclair would make 24 transfers from his mother's account. She would not know about a single one. Patricia Morrow called her mother every Sunday evening. 4 weeks before this story opens, Dorothy had mentioned, the way you mention a weather report while talking about something else, that Gary had recently reallocated some of her investments. Patricia kept her voice neutral. She asked as calmly as she could manage what that meant exactly. Dorothy didn't know exactly. Patricia wrote one word on her notepad: reallocated. She had managed hospital budgets for 2 decades. She knew what reallocated meant when no one could explain it. Patricia booked a flight to Columbus. She had one word on a notepad and a feeling she couldn't name. It was enough. The bank manager had known Dorothy for 11 years. He placed the statement on the desk with the careful manner of someone who has had to deliver difficult information before. Dorothy put on her glasses. She looked at the balance. She looked at it for a long time. Dorothy said very quietly, "That can't be right." The manager slid a second sheet across. 24 transactions over 11 months, the amounts, the dates, the name of the account holder who had initiated each one: Gary Sinclair, everyone. $180,000, not taken in one dramatic moment, taken slowly, in amounts that each looked in isolation like nothing particularly alarming. 12,000 in March, 8,000 in April, 28,000 in July, the largest. The transfers had gone to Gary's personal account, to a business account in his name, and in 3 cases to a home equity loan he had been unable to service for 2 years. Dorothy sat in Thomas's chair. She had not sat in it since he died. She did not like to. It felt like trespass. She sat in it now, and she did not speak for a long time. Here is what Dorothy had not done wrong. She had not been careless. She had not been naive. She had not ignored signs that were visible. She had trusted her son, and her son, whatever version of himself he had become in those 3 years of silence and shame and self-deception, had known exactly how that trust worked. He had known she would not check the account because she trusted him to manage it. He had known she would accept an explanation because she trusted him to know more. He had known she would not call Patricia because she trusted that if there was something to tell, Gary would have said so. He had used her trust as a map. He had walked through every door she had left open for him, not as a stranger forcing entry, as someone who had been given a key. Safety lesson. Request a full transaction history for any account where a family member has co-signatory access, at least once a year. Review it yourself, not through them. Dorothy had one question, not how. She understood how. The question was why he had not simply asked her. Patricia called Gary on a Saturday morning. He answered on the second ring, which told her later that he had been expecting it. Patricia said to him, "I need you to explain what happened to Mum's money." Gary responded after a pause, "It's complicated." Patricia was surprised to hear that, and she asked again, "Gary, 24 transfers, $180,000. Your name." Gary, very quietly, "I was going to put it back." Patricia held the phone against her ear and looked at the ceiling and understood, with the clarity that arrives after the shock has passed, that he had believed that. He had genuinely believed he was going to put it back. A portion of the money was recoverable. Gary's assets were liquidated. A structured repayment arrangement was established. Approximately $94,000 could be returned over time. That left $86,000 unrecoverable, absorbed into business debts and a life that had cost more than he could earn. Dorothy did not press criminal charges. She considered it for 3 days. Then she called Patricia and said she had made her decision. "He's still my son. That doesn't change what he did, but it doesn't change what he is either." Patricia cried at that, not because it was the wrong decision, but because it was so completely Dorothy, and because it illustrated with a precision no bank statement could exactly what Gary had taken from a woman who was still, even now, choosing not to punish him entirely. Dorothy had made peace with losing the money. What she could not yet make peace with was something smaller and much harder to name. Trust is the most valuable thing you can give someone. That is why the people closest to us can sometimes cost us the most. 3 weeks later, Dorothy opened the filing cabinet in Thomas's study for the first time since he died. She had let Gary retrieve things from it on her behalf over 4 years. Insurance documents, the car registration, a copy of the will. She understood now what she had done. She had given Gary access to the room where Thomas kept everything that mattered, and Gary had used that access to understand over time exactly what was there. He had not forced a lock. He had used a key that had been given to him willingly, in love, across 49 years. Behind the insurance folders, Dorothy found something she hadn't known was still there. A small notebook, Thomas's handwriting, a record, meticulous, dated, going back 20 years, of every significant financial decision they had ever made together. She sat down on the floor with her back against the cabinet and read it for 2 hours. Dorothy Sinclair is 74 years old. She still lives on Millbrook Avenue. She reads her own bank statements at the kitchen table every month. She has a second set mailed to her accountant. She speaks to Gary carefully on birthdays and at Christmas. What she has lost is not only money, she has lost the version of her son she believed in for 49 years. She has lost the particular peace of not having to think about who has access to her life. Some people grieve strangers. Dorothy is grieving someone she knew completely. Financial exploitation by a trusted family member is not rare. According to the National Council on Aging, family members account for the majority of elder financial abuse cases, far more than strangers. The most commonly exploited entry points are not technical vulnerabilities. They are emotional ones. The shadow in Dorothy's story was not someone who found a way in. The shadow was already inside. The greatest financial risks we face often come from the people we have already let in, not because they began with the intention to harm us, but because access combined with desperation and the certainty that we will never suspect them can lead people across a line they never imagined they would cross. 5 things to do today. Review your account statements yourself. Set withdrawal alerts with your bank. Consider a financial power of attorney with defined limits instead of co-signatory access. Ask a trusted third party, not a family member with access to receive duplicate statements. Treat your account like your front door. Know exactly who holds a key. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think about an arrangement you have trusted without examining, that is what Digital Shadows is here for. We tell these stories every week. You know where to find us. Dorothy trusted her son for 49 years. He used that trust as a key. Have you ever reconsidered an arrangement with someone you love, not because something went wrong, but simply because you realized you had never actually looked at it? Tell us in the comments. Always know who holds the key to your finances and check the lock yourself regularly. Also know that trust is not a flaw, but it can be used by the people who know us best to open doors we left unlocked for love.